action behind whatever it is that you say that you want or that you want to do. You have to. Because if not, you wind up just sitting and sitting and sitting, get older and older and older. And you never wind up figuring out what you like, what you don't like, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. Like, these things matter. It builds character. And it speaks and tells you more about who you are. So taking a leap sometimes is really necessary. Action is required. But anyway, so let me tell you how I wound up leaving Turkey. Because so by the middle of Ramadan, I was starting to feel like, oh, okay, I'm ready to go back to UK, because I spent half of Ramadan in Turkey, but I wanted a different vibe. One, I will say, there's a few things I'm going to say about Turkey. The food is good, but the food is on repeat. They don't have like the Chinese store here, then the Poppy store here, then like Thai here. They don't have it like that. In Turkey, they rep and they set. All they do is serve Turkish food. And the food is very good. I got to the point where I knew where I was going for what I was going for. That's how it was. But it kind of got to a point where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm ready to switch it up. And then if they were nicer, I probably would have stayed longer. But they were not nice. They weren't very nice. The experience was like, they were very standoffish. They don't speak our language. They speak like a little bit of English, but they're very standoffish. Like, they really don't want you there like that. But for the most part, I didn't have like an extremely bad scenario other than one, which is why I wound up leaving. So let me just get into that. I kind of was already starting to feel, okay, all right, I've done what I needed to do here. Let me go ahead back. I had a little vibe. I also went to the museum that has like the Prophet's footprints and Musa's art staff and like their swords and all of that. I'll link that down at the bottom too. I don't remember the name of the museum, but it had all that stuff, and I really was vibing for Ramadan last year. It was really, really nice. But time is up. Like, I don't like lingering on stuff that's expired, right? So when I already started in the spilling, I happened to go out one night after I was working, which is like 12 a.m. I knew I needed to say that, so because it's a highlight moment. I had went out late, and it wasn't any different than other times that I went to go get a snack. It's Ramadan. If I'm stuck and working inside, the only time that I got to come back out to eat is later. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do it. And mind you, Turkey is a place they be staying open late. People was out like late. Stores are still open, so I didn't feel bad. So this was like no other night. It was similar, but it was a little bit different. I wound up walking to the road. I went to my place that I normally go to. I got my midye dolmas. I was walking back. I had my little bag. I had my groceries, and then I had my food that I had ordered. I was walking, but I noticed it was two Turkish boys. This is Ramadan. Let's keep this in mind. It was two Turkish boys. They were at one of the crossroads, and they were talking to each other. I walked past. I did recognize them, but they weren't doing anything strange, so it wasn't really anything to think about. But I did notice them on the corner of my eye, and they was talking, and they was standing by. They were along the road, but people were walking. I wasn't the only one walking. There was other people walking down the street, but they happened to be on the road just standing. We were off the main road. So then because I also stayed in Istanbul. I was in Turkey, Istanbul, but I didn't stay like in a resort area. I stayed in like the neighborhood area. And the way that is set up is there's a lot of alleyways. Yes, a lot of alleyways and a lot of dark spots. So they do have lighting, but depending on where you are within that alleyway and the way that it's set up, it can be really dark in certain corners. I know it sounds great. Just stick with me here. Again, I had got used to that because I was walking that almost every day in the morning or at night. So I was walking, and once I got to that point, I would always look around because the last thing I want to do is somebody jump me or something happen to me while I'm in an alleyway or in one of the areas that's a dark little area right there. And I know that. So every time I would go in or come out, I would always check my surroundings, kind of see who's around me before. Okay, so when I did that, I turned around and I saw the two guys who was on the road. At first, I was kind of looking and I'm like, what are they doing? I mean, not saying that I was in an area that other people couldn't be, but how did they catch up to me so fast? They was far behind me at first. So they were closer. So then I started to notice that they're like speeding up. But they was walking still, but they was speeding. I'm like, oh. So as soon as I noticed that, something didn't feel right. So I turned the opposite direction of the alleyway and started walking back to the main road. Yeah. I'm gonna need somebody to see this or hear me or something, right? So I started walking back. And as soon as I did that, one of the guys like bum brushed me, knocked my daggone midye dolmas over in the back. That's the first thing I was like. Then I had my phone gripped. But I mean, it's by the grace of God. I had my phone gripped and he tried to snatch the phone out of my hand, but I had it so tight because of the way that the food had dropped, and you had me twisted the way I had walked out here to go get that. So I was holding the phone. He tried to smack it, but I still had it. Like, I had it very tight. Luckily, they didn't come back and try to fight me for it. All they did was kind of like push me off, and then one of the guys blew a kiss and they start running through the alleyway. But then I was nervous because I'm like, are they waiting for me to come around the other way of the alleyway? Are they just going to be waiting there? I was kind of nervous for a while. So I wound up walking back to the street. I stood there for a second. I started thinking. And I'm like, listen, I knew I was trying to figure out when I was leaving. Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow. So that's what wound up happening. So I was nervous. I had somebody on the phone. I wound up calling them, telling them like, listen, bruh, something just happened. So I said, can you just stay on the phone with me because I'm trying to just walk back to the house. So they told me like, all right, just walk back to the house, like because I was nervous about if they would be waiting for me around the corner. Nobody was, luckily, but it is still dark over there. So I stayed on my phone. I got to the house and I was like, all right, so I'm leaving tomorrow. And the good thing about London is because it's central to almost everywhere, no matter, like when you leave and come to London, it's very cheap. So like it was maybe like 50, I would say maybe like $100 to, it was $50 to go to Turkey. I feel like I paid $100 to come back. And I came back that next day after they had robbed me because I said, I won't give you another chance again. And it's supposed to be Ramadan and you don't care. Oh, no. And y'all not nice? Oh, no. So I spent the rest of my Ramadan in London. And it was actually a vibe because at that point I was still working, but you know, by the time we're back at me getting off at 10 o'clock. So I used to be able to make tawari. Yeah. So so that's where I was like, okay, London is lit for Ramadan. So East London, I went to East London Masjid. I just so happened to go there because I forgot where I was supposed to go. I went somewhere, and in the midst of me going to this place, I stumbled on Whitechapel. Whitechapel in East London. This is where you're gonna find all the hijabs, all the scarves, all the abayas, all the Indian clothes, it's Bangladeshi Asian 5.0. But they have wholesale. They have like cheap clothes, wholesale clothes. They got food. They got vendors. They got fruit, and everything's out like on the street, like it's a street market. So it's a lot of stuff there. And I stumbled upon that on my way headed somewhere else, and then stumbling upon that, I found East London Masjid. And when I say they're tawaris, their tawari prayers, I was so happy. I was like, something was calling me to not finish my Ramadan in Turkey. And I feel like it's because it gave me a chance to also feel the vibe of another place during Ramadan. And London was lit during Ramadan. Those tawaris was hitting in East London. So what I wound up doing, guess what I did? I wound up getting my next place for the next month near East London. So it's easy for me to keep on coming to the tawaris. And so I can scope more of East London out. Right? So that's how that wound up working. Mind you, I'm still working 8 to 5 technically from US hours, but 1 to 10 UK hours. And I was making that tawari work, and that was the highlight of my days while I was doing it that way. I was still renting Airbnb, but I want to tell y'all, booking.com is also a really good one. That was where I was getting other stays as well. And they were offering good prices when Airbnbs were going up or the quality wasn't really up to what I was interested in. I used booking.com. Also, too, I want to tell you that there's an option to use Spare Room. In Spare Room, they have like sublet options, house share options, studio options, and then they also offer rooms. And then another site that's similar to Share Room is also Open Rent. I actually like them a lot. They have a lot of options, and then they also let you, say for example, you wanted to rent with someone, like rent a house with someone, they'll let you chat and get cool with someone who you think might be a good candidate, and then they kind of like link it so when it comes time for y'all to actually rent, it's kind of like already sorted within the app. So I like that app as well. Also, two things that I found out which were really, really good as far as housing is concerned is dot property and also Global Guardians. Listen to this one. These are really, 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 really good housing options if you see yourself potentially staying there for at least a few months or more. You do not need to be international in order to use this type of service, but it's called a guardianship. The guardianships allow you to take over what would be like vacated houses, vacated properties, and for you to watch over and make it so that it's not vacant. So where like people believe that it's the squander, you stay there at a cheap rate. There is no set time, but you can wind up staying there for months. But if in any case that they decide, okay, well, they're going to be selling a property or they need it for something else, they give you 30 days notice. So I believe that this is a really, really good option for those people who are like open to moving around, open to potentially staying for longer periods, and who can commit to the requirements of being a guardian, which is actually being inside of there and being somewhere within the property to be able to oversee it, to make sure that it doesn't look vacant. And just keep in mind, just so you know, these are not places that are completely deserted. Other people live in them. It's just that these are properties that have not really been managed in a while, or that may be getting sold soon by the government or something like that. So it's not really on display for actual rent, like the major upkeep and things like that, but you are able to rent it. And I thought it was a really, really good, and that was why I wanted to go with that option. You pay between like maybe 390 pounds to like 950 pounds. That is really, really good if you're looking at a 1, 2, or 3 bedroom apartment. And you can choose to either rent it out yourself, or you can rent it out with other people depending on how many rooms. And then that'll make the rent cheaper than what I just mentioned, because those are for single occupants, or like if you match up with someone. So anyway, so that is a really, really good option. The only thing that I will say, because I'm going to keep it real with y'all, I'm not going to lie to y'all. Do y'all know what a council is? Let me tell you what a council is, because I had went to one of those appointments and I was looking around confused, because some of these places, I'm not all of them, I'm not going to bring all of them down, but some of them, I was like, if I was in America, I don't think these would be rentable. I don't think that you would be allowed to rent some of these the way that the condition was. However, they're giving it to you very, very cheap compared to the cost. Typically, it's going to cost you at least $1,100 just to rent a studio in London. It's very expensive. And then if you're getting a 1 bedroom or anything more than that, it's going to be at least $1,600. But this is in GBP. So if you convert that into American dollars, that's $100. I'm sorry, that is $2,200 or something like that. So that's what I was always looking at, stuff that was like 2,000 or like maybe 1,800. But again, the GBPs start to add up on these USA dollars. So I started to struggle a little bit, and which is why I started looking for other cheaper options to choose from as I continue to stay in the Airbnb and the Booking.com options, because those were very expensive. Anyway, fast forwarding, I wind up staying at several different studios. Then it got to a point where things were getting it started to get a little tight. So like, let me see, by April, because my job left the end of January, by April, they were telling me that my contract with the remote job was going to either be renewed or it was going to end. So I was trying to figure out how that was going to go. So I said, let me buckle down on my money, and I spent every single penny. I thought that was a little smart. So I was like, okay, so what can I do? I have never, ever lived with other people before, like other than family members. So I was seeing like a lot of like share a room, house share. And I was like cringing a little bit, but I'm like, Dad, do I want to be smart or do I want to be dumb and wasting a lot of money, like how I had started when I first got there at the end of January? So I'm like, okay, let me humble myself. So I found a few rooms that were actually really, really nice and really nice houses. And I was spending maybe like 100 to 200 pounds a week, which wasn't the worst case scenario. But you're living with multiple people, so pretty much it's like a studio within a house. Like your room is your room, and it can be big. Some of these rooms were big. Obviously I kind of would tread lightly if it was extremely small or whatever, but everyone's preference is different. I kind of like still wanted to have a certain type of vibe. I didn't want to feel stuck. So I did do a few rooms, but they were like very nicely well managed rooms. Then it started getting a little bit ghettoer, and then Airbnb started disappointing me, which is why I'm giving you all these other rental options, because Airbnb does not be Airbnb how it used to anymore. And the quality done dropped to the flow. So that's why booking.com wasn't bad, but it was also pretty expensive like an Airbnb unless you catch a really good deal. So the other options that I mentioned, and I'll put them down in the description for you, those, you want to kind of check those out, especially if you're trying to save a buck. But it's starting to take some of these places, I don't know, you know, as an American, I don't want to be smart, because I love my UKers, okay? I love my London gals. I love y'all, but the quality of living was, I had to adjust to that. Like I was, you know, America, I realized, because I was talking a lot of trash about like a lot of things about America, but you know, traveling will get you to start thinking about who you are, where you come from, what you about. Because when I was over there, I'm like, I see why people do not like Americans. Like I thought going to UK, they was going to have the tea. They was going to be super proper. The girls, they are proper. They do have a properness to them. They have a prissiness to them. I won't lie, and I'm not mad about it. But I feel like there's parts of it, though, like the layout of it. Like sometimes the houses, too. And some of it is kind of cringy, like a little dingy. I enjoyed it, though. I will go back. I just, you know, my living conditions in America were always way higher. When I went to London, I was very humble, including staying inside these rooms, even though they weren't. Some of them were actually really nice, but some of them was not. And people are still getting paid for those type of places, and it's like, wow, someone's going to stay there. It's not going to be me. Like, I'm going to report it, but there was a lot of different type of variety of options as far as London was concerned, and I really did humble myself. I'm not going to lie. Also along the journey, because I want to try to keep this as short as possible, because I want y'all to watch all of it to the end. I traveled to East London. I traveled to Northwest London. I started in North London. So here's the final part. From East London, I went to West London. From West London, I was like, all right, now what? Because I had traveled the whole thing besides like the very low bottom part of South. I wind up, everyone kept on telling me to go to Brixton Masjid. Shout out to Brixton Masjid. The sister circle there is on point. East London sister circle is on point. But when I finally got the time to go to Brixton, it looked just like Philly. Not the Masjid. We're not going to get to the Masjid yet. The Brixton, the station, the train station, and the street. All around it, it looked like North Philadelphia. 52nd Street. So I was like, wow. And I know it sounds crazy because it was kind of, it's like real hood, very hood. But because I'm so used to Philly and I've lived the majority of my life, guess what it felt like? Brixton felt like home. Brixton felt like home, bruv. It felt like home. And then I run into some sisters at Brixton Masjid because I was asking them about food. And one of them just grips my hand and we go off the San Marino, which is a cafe that people go to like for let outs and for the Eid, you know, after Juma or for Eid breakfast and stuff like that. Like that's the cafe that you would go to. I wound up going to San Marino with them. It was a Somali sister, Lebanese sister, and oh my God, what do you call the other one? Not Guyanese, but something like that. Those were the 3 girls that I met first. And I'll say the Lebanese sister, I'll call her T. I'll call her Somali sister. Anytime you ever hear anything for her, I'll call her H. We were like this after this. After I met them from the day one. It was so crazy because people had really been telling me to go to Brixton that whole time I was there. And I didn't run into them until like April. Ain't it crazy? I went as soon as I met them.